Alrighty, and we are live. How's it going, Mets, Braves, or whoever you're a fan of? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in for the latest post-game show on WardyNYM as we were back at it with our first doubleheader coverage of the 2023 Metropolitan season. As the Mets split their doubleheader today, they lose the series overall, but there were definitely some positive takeaways, especially on the young front for the Mets, led by Brett Baty, led by Francisco Alvarez. A lot of offense today, too, so it was certainly an entertaining day to sit around for, 5 to 6 hours of baseball. Would have loved the 2 wins, but the Mets do salvage the series by winning the final game in this matchup by a final score of 5-3. They lost the top game of the doubleheader today. 9-8 was your final, but a lot to get into as I'll be breaking down everything that transpired in both games 2 and 3 of this series. It should have been a 4-game series, but because of the rainouts, one game was pushed to a doubleheader all the way, I think, August 12th. So a lot to get into for the Mets, a lot to get into for the Braves, because some Braves bats absolutely balled out today. They deserve credit. Obviously, the Mets, the same applies. I'm just happy that this Mets offense came out today and did what we would hope that they would do. Unfortunate on the pitching side when you had a bullpen game in game 1. Didn't love the decisions by Buck once again, but no less, there are still positives to take away, and I'll be going through the ups, the downs, the in-between, all that transpired in today's long matchup with these two rivals. But more than anything, I appreciate everyone first watching live or on replay. Thank you guys all so much for being in here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. It's greatly appreciated, folks, if you're watching live or on replay. And I just want to start out by saying the following. I saw some terrible comments on social media, especially Twitter, which I'm not surprised by because of Ronald Acuna, what we saw there in game 2. I'm going to just jump to this right away. Acuna was drilled in the shoulder by Tyler McGill after McGill was already in an 0-2 count. First of all, McGill never intentionally did that. Any Braves fan that thinks that way, I'm sorry, you're just wrong. I can understand emotions are high and you're bothered. Us Mets fans can relate, seeing Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and even a couple years ago now, Brave, who did well against the Mets today, and Kevin Pillar get drilled in the face. Yes, it's frustrating, but it doesn't mean it's intentional. That certainly wasn't the case with Tyler McGill, and I hope that for Acuna's sake that he gets back and is healthy ASAP. I want to see the Mets ball out and have great matchups with the Braves this year, but I want to see both teams healthy in doing so. I don't wish injury on anyone. Just some of the comments that were out there were absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that any rational fan, for whatever fan base you're a follower of, could genuinely believe that Acuna was hit purposely when it was 0-2 in the count, no less, to start the game. Come on. Let's be realistic here. That certainly was not the case. So, again, I feel for Acuna. That was an unfortunate situation. I hope he's not going to be out long-term or anything like that, because I want to see the Mets beat up on the Braves as a natural Mets fan with bias, but I want to see it healthy, so that way you don't have Braves fans coming out, should that in fact happen, and say, oh, well, if we had Acuna, it would be different. I want to see both these teams healthy and thriving in what is going to be a big battle throughout the year. So that's the final comment that I'm going to make there on in regards to the Acuna situation, because, again, I just found it ridiculous, some of the stuff that I was seeing out there on social media. Mama Worm, how are you? Appreciate you chiming in. Shout out all my live members, my recurring members, my new members, my overall subscribers. Again, every single one of you guys really, really does mean a lot. And to the Braves fans that are watching this, are being civil, appreciate that too, whether watching live or on replay. I know that we have a good amount of Braves followers because they do chime in, want to follow the Mets all year long, rightfully so, when these two teams are competing in the top of the NL East. And again, Braves, they got the series victory. The Mets, however, salvaged things, and now will be on a positive note as they head into a key matchup against the Detroit Tigers. Even though the Tigers aren't a good team, you're going to see Mad Max Scherzer make his return. You're going to see Justin Verlander make his season debut, in which we'll actually be doing a watch party for however long JV pitches on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. But guys, we have a lot to talk about from this ball game, from these ball games overall. So everyone in the live chat, I want to ask you guys, before we just jump into things, who is your players of the game? Because for me, I once again had to cheat just slightly. I picked not one, but 2 players as player of the games. And along with that, I of course have to let you guys know that today's show is brought to you by my good friends at SoRare MLB and Mantis Sleep. They are the partners of today's show, but I will get to them a little bit later here in this one. But yeah, I want to know, who do you think is going to be the players of the game? Obviously, there was one specific player that I was raving about from start to finish all day long. There's another player that I raved about, especially in game 2. Shouldn't take a rocket scientist, but if there's a positive to come out for the Mets here, for what we saw them split this doubleheader, it is headlined by the youth of this team. And obviously, if we're talking about player of the game, the series, that is not the Mets, it's Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy murdered the Mets today, deserves that credit. I hated when the A's traded him to Atlanta right away because I knew he'd be a problem. Matt Olson's one thing, but bringing in Sean Murphy, another Oakland A, is another. Not happy about it, but thankfully, because this is a Mets show, we don't have to do player of the game for the opposing team. We do player of the game for the team that we're covering here every single day on the channel. Sean, thank you so much for becoming a franchise member. I appreciate that. And guys, we're going to break down the nit and the gritty from what transpired in both these ball games today, but I have to cheat a little bit. I have to. Let's just get right into the player of the games today, and then I'll break down, because again, the games are going to take a little bit breaking them down, to say the least. And it starts with Brett the Met. When I tell you Brett Baty has wowed me and then some, as a guy that was heavily advocating for him so much when the Mets first started the year, I was bothered that he was sent down. You guys know I was even on SNY and advocating so heavily for him. He is on an effing heater right now. 3 for 9 throughout the 2 games, 4 for 10 in the series as a whole, a double, a home run, and an RBI today. 2 runs scored at minimum, if I'm not mistaken, if not 3. Brett Baty didn't only look stellar with the bat, going lefty on lefty, hitting that bomb off of Dylan Lee, the southpaw reliever of the Atlanta Braves, but the glove looked phenomenal today too. Brett the Met is not only the future at the hot corner for the Mets third base position, he is the now. Brett Baty has continued to wow me and then some every single time that he has been out there, and he is absolutely thriving, and this is massive for a Mets team that we know on paper is no better than last year offensively. You could even argue they might be slightly worse, with a lot of guys having career years last year. The only way the Mets are going to have a better year than last year on the offensive front, with having more pop in their lineup, aside from acquiring guys via trade by the trade deadline, is by giving opportunities to their young players, led by Brett Baty. He's been absolutely phenomenal. He barreled so many baseballs today. He hit 100 miles per hour or higher on the velo at least 6 pitches that he hit today. His bomb was 430 feet at 108 mile per hour exit velo. What an effing stud. I cannot say enough great things about Brett Baty for the Mets player of the game. Again, if you're a Braves fan, then I would tell you it is Sean Murphy, but you're never going to catch me going out of my way to make a graphic for Sean Murphy. So we're talking about the Metropolitans here today, because Baty was a key factor into the Mets' offensive and defensive success today. Just every single time he was up there, he looked sharp. He got blown away a little bit early there in game 1 that I will get to shortly, because Spencer Strider throwing the heat. That's natural for someone. Even though Baty has great bat-to-ball skills, I was the least bit surprised that Strider was blowing him away. He has to get adjusted. That's still fairly new for him, facing that type of heat here at the MLB level. But especially lefty on lefty, when there was this initial narrative that, oh, Baty, the Mets are going to platoon him, they're clearly showing, led by Buck Showalter, that they're willing to throw him out there in all situations versus a lefty versus a righty. The same way he had a single off of Max Fried in game 1 of this series before it got washed out. So Brett Baty, he is my one of 2 stars on the day. And yes, I'm not in love with Buck Showalter and his decision making right now. I see people commenting in the chat about, I agree with you. I'm not loving Buck. The lineups having no complaints with, but the bullpen not loving, and I understand he doesn't have a lot to work with, especially with the amount of injuries the Mets are dealing with. I'm keeping that into account. However, there are some head-scratching moves, especially in game 2. You, again, could rightfully argue, but Brett Baty is my one of 2 players of the game today, because my second player of the game today is the guy that ultimately won it for the Mets in game 2 in their 5-3 victory, and that is Francisco Alvarez, the youngest player in baseball at the young age of 21. He's younger than me, guys. That's saying a lot. Rips a go-ahead 2-run double there later in this ballgame off of Tonkin to give the Mets the lead, and they would thankfully never look back. Francisco Alvarez is finally starting to grind out and take quality at-bats. Had multiple hits today, which is great to see. 2 for 4 overall, because he didn't get an at-bat in the first game with Tomas Nido starting. Surprise, surprise, Nido didn't do anything offensively. But game 2, Alvarez looked very sharp, and I'm loving his game calling as well. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, he still has his hiccups defensively, but everything that Alvarez is showing is improvement. He's now up to a 230 average, which might not seem like a lot, but in comparison to Tomas Nido that's hitting a buck, it's kind of a big deal. So Alvarez is on the direction upward for everyone that had the audacity to write him off as a 21-year-old, only having a week or 2 weeks worth of MLB experience. It was ridiculous, some of the things that we were seeing. But Alvarez, because of how clutch of an at-bat he had, that go-ahead runs to drive in the game winner of the game, no less, which would be the game winner, that's why I need to recognize this. This is the biggest game that Alvarez has had, biggest day he has had in his young career, and it certainly is just the start of a lot that we are going to see on the Francisco Alvarez Mets front. There's a reason why he's been arguably the top prospect in baseball for the past year plus. He's 21, playing a premier position there at the catching spot, which is so vital for all teams. We see how good it works when teams have great hitting catchers like Sean Murphy, Travis d'Arnaud for the Atlanta Braves, and now hopefully the Mets have themselves something here in the future that is starting now, and Francisco Alvarez, who's finally starting to get that bat-to-ball skills caught up. He's catching up to some heat. He's taking some pitches. He's not looking lackadaisical every single time he's out there first pitch swinging, right in the dirt or striking out. He's taking his at-bats and he's getting better. As long as you see improvements, that is all that you can ask for. I do see some donations, so I'm going to get to them shortly. But again, Francisco Alvarez, a great day for him behind the plate at the backstop position, and of course at the plate, getting some hacks and getting those huge 2 RBIs for that double later on in game 2, which would lead to the Mets victory. But I do see some donations. Let me get to them now before we advance further in the show. Appreciate everyone watching live and in replay. Like I said, we're going to be breaking down. I'm going to go through innings 1 through 9 for both games. I'm going to try to be fairly quick with it just because, again, it's 2 ball games. And it normally takes me a handful of minutes just to break down one game in itself. So I'm going to try to speed run it and do my absolute best. So just bear with me. And again, appreciate you guys being in here. Dave, a great member. Thank you so much for the $5 holla. Remember last year's trade deadline when I was begging Mets to get Sean Murphy? I was 100% right. I knew he was great. Sean Murphy is a phenomenal young catcher. He's easily one of the better catchers in baseball right now. No doubt about it. I liked Sean Murphy too. I didn't at first know much about him, but once I did my homework, especially as we head in the off season with all the rumors going on, yeah, there was valid reasoning as to why you would want Sean Murphy, and the Atlanta Braves agreed, and they got him. And, I got to say, as much as that trade bothered me, for the Oakland A's, at least they got a piece back that is thriving in Lane Lears, who is a catcher as well from the Braves organization. Lane Lears is off to a very good start, hitting-wise and at the backstop for the catching spot for the Oakland A's. So, the A's, they part with a young, controllable catcher that they weren't going to sign long-term, and in return, they get a guy that they can use in that position for the years going forward until they inevitably trade him away for a similar deal, because the A's can never lock anyone down long-term because they're cheap schmucks. I do see a donation here from Sean MD. Thank you so much. He says, taking a page out of the Braves' book to hold Beatty's family for hostage and force him to sign a great contract for the Mets, and I guess the players of the game, right? Yes, you did guess it right. And two, I agree. I actually tweeted this out earlier. I really hope the Mets start to adopt this Braves philosophy with signing their young talent early. If Beatty continues to ball out, he needs an extension done by the end of the season. I'm sorry. This is the exact time that you want to do it when it's these guys' first or second years in the league. Get them early, get them often. You're going to get them at such a bargain price, long-term AAV-wise. That's why you want to do it. That's why the Braves core group is essentially going to be the same group of guys for the next 5 to 10 plus years. They're on awesome contracts, all like team-friendly deals, and the Mets need to adopt that philosophy as well. I wholeheartedly agree, and it should start with Brett Beatty, who again is off to a great start, and hopefully we see plenty more of that and then some. Ryan, thank you so much for the donation, $5 holla. He says the offense is alive with Beatty and Alvey, D-Rob, Otto, Rayleigh, Smith feeling like a wall, and the cavalry's coming. The week was bad, but the future looks fun. Mets, again, have a lot of positive things coming for this team. It hasn't been fun. The rotation has been frustrating as all hell. It's definitely bothered me as a fan. I know it's bothered the fans of many. Seeing Denny Reyes just start today's game and be out there somehow longer than he should have been in itself is enough to piss you off. And speaking of which, let's just hop into the ball games, guys. I'm going to break down game 1 first and get to game 2 so we end on a positive note. But I will say about game 1 as well, the Mets faced a lot of adversity. They had little to no pitching all of game 1, and the offense came to play. It sucks that they couldn't rally all the way back, but I commend the offense. I can't complain about the offense too much in game 1 when he still put up 8 runs, okay? Yes, there were some at-bats that frustrated me where it's like I needed more production from Alonso, who aside from a big bomb that we saw in the first game, was striking out on some silly pitches. Same thing goes with Lindor. I want to see a little bit more there, and especially from the depth, because if you weren't hitting a home run, the Mets weren't getting too much else. But again, I can't sit here and say like, oh my goodness, the Mets offense is the reason why they lost game 1 today. It was the farthest thing from the truth. Having a bullpen game with little to no relievers that are MLB caliber pitching will do that to you. So let's break down game 1, shall we? Let's get into it. Game 1 starts with Ronald Acuna Jr. doing what he does best prior to his injury later in the ball game. He rips a single. Matt Olson rips a single as well off of Denny Reyes. And then Sean Murphy, a 3-run ding-dong. Wouldn't be his last home run of the day either. And just like that, it's a 3-0 Braves lead. The game felt over truly before it even began. Thankfully, the Mets offense will make this game entertaining. But my God, when you talk about a gut punch right away, that is exactly what Sean Murphy did to this Mets team in the top of the first, at least to us Mets fans, including myself. But as we head to the bottom of the first, Nimmo with a triple, Marte with a walk, Lindor with an RBI single and a stolen base. The Mets cut the lead for the Braves to 2. And then with 2 outs, Vogelback with a walk. Nothing else transpires. Nimmo with a great triple there off the wall to right, off of Spencer Strider. The Mets getting to Strider early was awesome, and the Mets having Strider end when on a sharp day is great to see. He somehow got the win because he got such great offensive production behind him through that Braves lineup. But I mean, the Mets, they handled Strider more than fine today, and that was a positive sign, catching up to his heater and knowing that, yeah, like, you know, you can't say that this was because of luck again. And Strider, I will give credit, he did give the Mets a lot of praise and a lot of props post-game today. I imagine that went in hand with him still getting the win with the Braves, but still, I was happy to see him acknowledge the Mets a bit, and he was actually raving about them and just saying how hard of an at-bat they are and everything. So I appreciate that. As much as I'm not a Spencer Strider fan, he's still a great talent. And now as we get to the second, the Mets are down 3-1. You're like, okay, the Mets are down 2 runs. There's still a possibility for them to be in this ballgame, right? Then Reyes, who shouldn't have started the inning because John Curtis was already warming up. However, the Mets still opted to go with Denny Reyes for the second inning, and that would be their demise. Harris with a single right away, and Kevin Pillar, the former pinch hit god himself for the Mets back in 2021, the same guy who got drilled in the face in Atlanta against these same Braves, rips a 2-run ding-dong to left, and that increases the Braves' lead 5-1. Curtis then comes in a couple batters too late. And here's the thing, as much as this bothered me, Acuna hits an absolute nuke job. Like, he's probably the farthest home run we've seen hit at Citi Field since Giancarlo Stanton. Either it was Subway Series or it was just when he was with the Miami Marlins. Because Giancarlo, if anyone was going to touch third deck to left, it was always Stan and no one else. Acuna joined a rare company there, an absolute piss missile. However, what I will say is that aside from that bomb to a really, really good player and Ronald Acuna Jr., Curtis, I wasn't griping about too much, and I still would have been an advocate of him starting that second inning over Denny Reyes. And it's hard to argue otherwise, assuming that, you know, that was Curtis was the only other option, right? So he gives up that bomb just like that. It's a 6-1 Braves lead. You're down by 5. There's no chance in hell the Mets can even try to rally here, right? Well, they would to a degree. They would to a degree. As we get to the third, Marte with a single and a stolen base. Lindor with a walk. And then Pete Alonso says, how you doing? Spencer Strider goes oppo for his 11th home run of the year. You'll love to see that Pete Alonso 3-run ding-dong, and we have ourselves a ball game. It's 6-4. Braves only up by 2. Afterwards, McNeil would hit by pitch and a Vogelback single, though he had a very good day at the plate as well. But that'll do it for the third. As we then get to the fourth, Steven Nagosic comes in without a problem, has himself a scoreless inning. If I'm not mistaken, let me double check. Yeah, Nagosic comes in, has himself a scoreless fourth. So then we fast forward a little bit to the 6th inning. With 2 outs, Vaughn Grissom gets a single, and then that'll be Steven Nagosic's final line. Nagosic pitched 2.2 innings of scoreless ball. Very, very happy with what I saw from Steven Nagosic. His first outing back after being reinstated from the 15-day IL today for this Mets team, along with Zach Muckenhirn, who was called up for Game 2. We saw Jose Buto used as the 27th man after being optioned to AAA yesterday. I'm trying to think of any other roster moves I'm blanking on that I should notify you guys on. That was about it. Steven Ridings was transferred to the 60-day AL, which is frustrating. Flamethrower that the Mets picked up in the offseason, but has yet to get healthy, coming from the Yankees organization. And then, yeah, that's really about it for now, if I'm not mistaken. But we advance forward here. So Brigham comes in, gets the final out of the inning in the 6th. In the bottom of the 6th, Beatty rips a lefty-lefty home run. They bring in Dylan Lee to face Brett Beatty to start off the inning. And you know what Brett Beatty says? I'm taking this bad boy deep. And he does do exactly that. That's why we highlight him as one of the players of the game today. Beatty just so damn good. I'm in love with this guy. I really am. Off the lefty and Dylan Lee. And the Mets have themselves a 1-run ball game. Pham with a walk afterwards. Nino with a sack bunt, but the Mets could not convert any more offense there. As we head to the 7th inning in Game 1 of the doubleheader today, Acuna with a double, which was a bad play by Marte. I don't know how he didn't get there. It was center right, and Marte just couldn't get the glove there in time. Neither could Nimmo, who was backing him up. So it's a leadoff double there in the 7th for Acuna. Olsen with a walk, and then Murphy does it again. Sean Murphy with his second 3-run home run of the game. 2 bunts bombs, 6 RBIs is Sean Murphy, who just absolutely blew the Mets away in this ballgame. And still, even when this happened, when the Mets were losing 9-5, they still made a ballgame of it. And that's why this was such a crazy one to follow, back and forth constantly. We were seeing a hanging slider, a terrible pitch that we saw there too by Brigham. Brigham, he's looked sharp in some instances. And today, a hanging slider right down the dick. Any competent hitter is barreling that bad boy at least 400 feet, and Murphy did exactly that. So it's a 9-5 Braves lead as we then head to the bottom of the 7th. And Lindor and Alonso would reach base thanks to Colin McHugh's hit by pitches. McNeil with a single. Vogelback would get 2 in by a fielder's choice, gets one in the infield, and the throwing error by Vaughn Grissom allows Alonso to then score. So the Mets, it's a 9-7 ball game, right? Beatty with a single because he's an absolute stud, but that's all she wrote. The Mets could not score again there in that situation. Pretty sure they had bases low with 2 outs, but couldn't get any more in. And then as we get to the 8th, Tommy Hunter strikes out the side in the 8th, which was very impressive. Tommy pitched 2 scoreless innings, 2 perfect innings today with 4 strikeouts. So Tommy, who's been inconsistent, was consistent against the Braves today. Not going to complain there for Tommy. He was one of the better pitchers that the Mets had today of all their relievers. Then in the 9th, with 2 outs, Eduardo Escobar, pinch hitting on the right side, rips a bomb off of AJ Minter, who has not been good to start the year for the Braves. To left, it's a 1-run ball game. The Mets would go on to lose game 1 of the doubleheader today by a final score 9-8. The bullpen was frustrating. Denny Reyes really pissed me off. There's no doubt about that. But at least the offense was able to rally as much as they did. Normally, when we've seen this Mets team down by even 2, 3, 4, let alone 5 runs, the likelihood of them making a game out of it has been slim to none. So that's a positive sign in the right direction. And they would take that direction as a positive note as they head into game 2 of this matchup, because as I just spoke, it did start with an unfortunate injury going to Ronald Acuna Jr. Again, an 0-2 count. McGill is trying to get him to chase down away, try to get the strikeout, and he completely misses and drills Acuna there in the shoulder. Again, I feel for Acuna. I certainly hope that is not a significant injury on his front, but he gets hit there and he's out of the ballgame right away. I think they called it a left shoulder contusion, whatever it was, whatever they officially announced. So we'll find out updates on Acuna the next day or so on that front. But Kevin Pillar comes in to play the second game of the doubleheader, going in right field this time. Nothing happens there in the first. And the second, because the Mets don't do anything offensively, who gets the first hit of the game? That would, of course, be Sean Murphy, because he killed the Mets today. Then as we head to the bottom, the second, because the Braves don't do anything, they don't convert on their offense, McNeil with an opposite field single, and then Daniel Vogelback with an RBI double. Vogie with an extra base hit. We will gladly take that. Vogelback, again, had some very solid at-bats today, not complaining with him at all right now. He's batting, if I'm not mistaken, what is Vogie batting right now, actually? I should double-check that. Vogelback is batting .278 with an .815 OPS on the season. I understand we would like more power out of Vogelback, but for what he is, I'm not complaining all that much right now. He's putting the ball in play, and he's not being a consistent ground ball double play guy, even though it should have been a double play when he drove in essentially those 2 runs in game 1. But I digress. Thankfully, Vaughn Grissom has yet to have a competent glove. So for as long as Grissom is going to struggle, teams like the Mets are certainly going to thrive. Even Vogelback hustling down first baseline, which is crazy to see. We love Hoagie Vogie there. But advancing further in this ballgame, the Mets get the early 1-0 lead off of the Braves, and thankfully, they wouldn't look back. They would not lose this ballgame, because in the third, Tyler McGill with his first 1-2-3 inning of the day. In the bottom of the third, then Alvarez with a single. Lindor with a walk. Mets can't convert, though, with 2 on and less than 2 out. In the fourth, McGill with a 1-2-3 fourth. Again, McGill looking very sharp through 4 innings today. But as we get to the 5th, a Sean Murphy single and a Rosario walk, you see the first type of adversity that McGill's really facing today with 2 on, no out. Thankfully, he escapes that jam with 2 strikeouts and a ground ball to end the inning. And in the first 2 innings of the day, if I'm not mistaken, he was able to get out of those jams via double play, which was great. Great defense turned by, of course, whether it was Beatty to Lindor to Alonso or just Lindor, whoever it was. But then as we advance further, guys, we get to the bottom of the 5th. After the Braves don't do anything in the top of the 5th, Beatty with his second extra base hit today, this time a double. Nimmo with a single, and Marte with an RBI single up the middle to increase the Mets lead, this time 2-0 in the Mets' favor. And the 6th, Trump with a double. Trump, again, not Trump with a double. Olsen with a walk, Murphy with a walk. And now you see it's bases loaded, 2 outs. McGill needs to get that final out. Got squeezed a little bit in that at-bat against Murphy, but Murphy gets the walk. I didn't mind Murphy walking, honestly, because he's torched the Mets all day long. Why would it be any different now, right? But no less, Rosario comes in, Eddie Rosario that is, and he rips a 3-run double with a beautiful relay throw by McNeil that looked like it got Murphy out at home, but unfortunately, after review, after the Braves challenged, he would then score. Braves take a 3-2 lead in the 6th inning. Tyler McGill's final line today, folks, 5.2 innings, a 3 earned run ball, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. McGill didn't pitch bad today either. That's a frustrating thing. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, bases loaded, 2 out. Would it have been smart to maybe put in even Zach Muckenhern in that situation to try to get that lefty on lefty out against Rosario, who has not done well against lefties so far this season, aside, of course, from barreling David Pearson in game 1 of the series, because of course he did. It was a tight ball game, but that was a frustrating one. It was like the Mets hunt out McGill to dry when you just wanted to maybe see a change there. I know they don't have much options. I know that they don't even have Raley right now because he's on the 15-day IL with elbow inflammation, just like Jacob deGrom for the Texas Rangers, no less. But that was frustrating. It was, because McGill, again, was cruising early on this ball game. Got into some adversity in the 5th, escaped without a problem, and then the 6th, that was his demise, as he has a 4-year ERA on the season now for the Mets. Again, as a guy who was not expected to start the year in the Mets rotation, I can only complain so much, right? McGill was not the Mets issue today, and thankfully their offense would continue to produce, because in the bottom of the 6th, that same inning, Vogelback would have walked, Cano would have walked, and Francisco Alvarez barrels a 2-run double down the third baseline, and that would give the Mets back their lead, and they would not look back. Drew Smith with a nice 1-2-3 7th inning. Robertson would come in the 8th. He would allow a 1-out single to Austin Riley, who finally got a hit this series. Austin Riley has not been swinging the bat well at all lately, thankfully, especially against this Mets team, because when he's on, and we know he's going to kick this Mets team. It's later in the year. So thankfully the Mets took advantage of not facing a good Riley so far this series, even though he got a single there to left. But Robertson escapes the jam with a couple strikeouts. Then the bottom of the 8th, McNeil with a no doubt more like McDaner McBombs to right to increase the Mets lead, give them an insurance run there, then up by 2. Cano with a single, a nice at bat, grinded out, goes to center right for a single, and then that's all she does in the 8th. In the 9th, then Albies with a double, but the Braves cannot convert as David Robertson gets himself the save, 2 scoreless innings, allowing 2 hits, 4 strikeouts. While this bullpen has certainly been in shambles with the lack of depth, proper depth it's had with a recent injury, one thing is certain: David Robertson is an absolute stud in that closer role with now a 0.68 ERA on the season. David Robertson, I mean, if you were going to give a pitcher, if you were going to give any pitcher today a player of the game award, it was going to go to D-Rob, who looked lights out. Just looking at the pitching stats further, again, from game 2, I would show game 1, but these are like automated right away, so the game 1 ones get wiped out right away, and not that you'd want to see it. The Mets pitching stats from game 1 was absolute cheeks, right? But this is what you saw here in game 2, which led to the Mets victory. Again, the McGill kept the Mets in this ball game. It was unfortunate what happened there in the 6th. Drew Smith 1.1 scoreless, and David Robertson just continuing to get massive outs, massive strikeouts, and freezing Sean Murphy, who was the hottest hitter out of all players today, was massive that we saw there. And what was it? It was the 8th or the 9th inning, whichever one it was. Huge props to David Robertson. And then the hitting stats as well. That's what you see from game 2 today in the Mets victory. I'm going to double check, guys, on the chat right now. JL, continuing with the 1986 comments. Wow. Yes, the last time the Mets won a World Series was 1986. Yes, you're accurate about that one. And that's not going to faze any Mets fan. We're well aware. What? I don't know, like, Braves fans, you won the series. I understand. Why are we talking about a World Series right now, right? The one comment I will say I thought was funny, someone said in the chat earlier, it was a Braves fan saying, Braves are the kings of the East. It's funny because you're not. The Phillies are right now. No one is a king of the East this early in the season. It means nothing that you're in first. The same way I would feel if the Mets were in first right now, wholeheartedly. I mean, the Phillies just represented the NL in the World Series, so I don't think either of us can talk on that front, if I'm being quite honest with you. If there's any king, it's the reigning team that just went to the World Series, because that fully trumps just being first in the division for the first month of baseball, or even just getting in first in the final couple weeks of the year last year just to choke in the first round, similar to what the Mets did choking-wise in the wild card series. So that's a funny those comments really crack me up. They do. Enough of this. You think Nito gets a hit there? Hell no, he strikes out 3 pitches exactly. And Tomas Nito is off to a terrible start, as is Luis Guillorme. These guys are becoming automatic outs, unfortunately, throughout the first month of the season. Phillies lost the World Series. They did, but they still kicked their teeth in the playoffs and got to the dance. So they're still the reigning. They won the crown out of the National League last year. So they are the Canes of the East. They are the reigning Canes of the East. It is not the Braves. That's nonsense to think it's the Braves right now. It is the Phillies. It doesn't matter that they lost. They still surpassed you and went farther than any team in the NL East last year. They are the reigning Canes of the East, and I'm going to stand by that. And it doesn't matter that the Braves won the World Series because that was multiple years ago. We're talking about relevancy right now, aren't we? Most recent, that was Phillies gained the farthest. What did I want to say? Oh, yeah, I want to say, too, Lindor, pardon me, not Lindor, Guillorme and Nito, they're guys that I just don't see are going to have much longer leashes at this rate. Guillorme's been in there because of his great defense and his versatility, but he's been such an automatic out that unless he starts to turn it on this month of May, it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if he's on his way out of here sooner than later. And Nito, same thing. If Alvarez continues to produce and gets better, the Mets are going to have a very interesting situation on their hands when they bring Tomas Nido in the fold. Because, Omar Narvaez, rather. Because once you have Narvaez in the fold, there could be a fair argument that the Mets catching tandem down the stretch this year could be Narvaez and Alvarez. That is a real possibility and something that I'm surely not against. I just want to see whoever is going to be the most productive in that position. And right now is not Tomas Nido. Francisco Alvarez at the age of 21 is already doing more offensively for this Mets team and is looking perfectly fine with his defensive ability from his framing to his catch rate. I'm not really complaining on that front whatsoever. But guys, appreciate everyone that's been chiming in. I do want to let you guys know, of course, that today's show, like many of our shows, is brought to you by our good friends here at SoRare MLB. And for those that don't know what SoRare MLB is, SoRare MLB in a nutshell, guys, is the best MLB fantasy game out there. I told you guys plenty about them as we go through my lineup and I talk about yours weekly here. But SoRare MLB, it's free to play. You don't have to spend a dime, and you draft your lineup right away at how your team does weekly by entering multiple tournaments a week, twice a week, two if not three. They're Monday, Thursday, and then Sunday, or usually around those areas of when tournaments start. When those tournaments begin, you can enter through various tournaments free, or if you want to enter tournaments where you have a team that is costly, where you have to spend dollars to get specific rare cards that you would say buy their exclusive cards, rare, super rare, limited cards, etc. But you don't have to spend a dime, and by signing up, you get to draft your team, and how your team does in these tournaments is based on how these players do in real life. I absolutely love this game. As you guys can see, I'm currently in a tournament. I'm ranked at the moment 159th out of over 21,000 because I have Lindor, I have Alonso, and I even started Spencer Strider because I had a feeling that he was going to do well against the Mets today. I'm so glad that he didn't do as well as he did. I mean, I wouldn't even mind it at all if Strider had a 0 there, but Strider has been a strikeout machine, and with the inconsistency with this Mets offense, I threw him in there, and he honestly gave me more points than I expected because he somehow got the win today because the offense was just so good for the Braves in game one, unfortunately. But I got Romano, McClanahan ready to start. So I've done really well in these tournaments, and how you do in these tournaments isn't only based off of how the players perform in real life, but once they're done after like a certain series, usually it's 3 or 4 games that each player has for your pitchers, your relief pitchers, your batters, whoever they are. You can win real prizes. You can win real dollars. Yes, actual dollars, hundreds to thousands of dollars in these limited tournaments that you can enter, that you can win if you do well in these tournaments. Of course, you can win free merch of your favorite team. You can win tickets to your favorite team's games, and you can win new upgrade cards to add to your team free of charge without having to spend a dime of your own. And you can buy, sell, trade cards. You can do so much in this game. Imagine MLB The Show, where you're your own GM, and do that, combine that with fantasy baseball, and that is what you have here in SoRare MLB. So guys, I highly implore you all, if you haven't already, make sure to check out SoRare MLB using the link in the description to sign up. Again, it's free of charge. If you want to spend money, you can, because if you want to upgrade your team and make your team look cooler and have unique cards that are unique to you by having limited rare, super rare cards, you can get gold cards like this. You can get a super rare cards like this that's currently at 66 real dollars that people are betting for that Brandon Drury card. You see a super rare here of Jake Cave. Who's that, right? You see Brett the Met, a gold limited card there. I got to get myself a Brett the Met. I wish I had Brett Beatty on my team right now. He absolutely killed it. But the list goes on and on. These tournaments are so much fun. I love this. This is the best fantasy baseball game out there. So again, make sure to check them out, guys. That is, again, at SoRare MLB. Link is in the description. Sign up using my code. And thank you guys all so much in advance, because we've had a boatload of signups already from you guys that have been great followers on the channel. And there's a reason why they're endorsed by the MLB. There's a reason why they are endorsed by every big baseball content creator out there, not named myself right now. Sorare MLB is huge. It is awesome. And I've been having so much fun playing in these weekly tournaments. And I highly implore you guys all to do the same. But I do want to get some of your comments. Hey, Jack, how's it going? Great member. Shout out all my great members here in the live chat again as we're breaking down the Mets splitting their doubleheader today and overall dropping this series out of 2 out of 3 games. But yeah, that's really... on that front, I would have loved to see this be a 4-game series because heading into it, I was very content with the Mets if they just went and, say, split the series. They didn't even have the chance to split the series because of how bad the weather was this weekend, unfortunately. But at least the Mets were able to salvage this series, and now they're going to get some very important, really key pitching enforcements. And I love that they're getting them against the Detroit Tigers, just because you're having Max Scherzer return to Detroit, where he was for a long time with his buddy Justin Verlander. And for those that don't know, the starting rotation is going to be Joey Lucchesi tomorrow. Then you're going to have Max Scherzer Wednesday and Justin Verlander Thursday, which we're likely going to do a watch party on the channel of for at least, at minimum, Justin Verlander to start. And then we'll do a post-game show afterwards, so stay tuned for all that. Kodai Senga, who was initially scheduled to pitch either today or tomorrow, he is pushed all the way till Friday, just gained extra rest. He will pitch the first game of that series against the Rockies, so stay tuned for that one. Let's see this. Congratulations on the 2022 wild card. Yeah, thanks so much. Congratulations to the first round exit last year for the Braves too. I'm glad to see we're in the same boat. This is what I mean. You guys crack me up. Yes, no shit. It's if you could argue the Braves drop off was, you could even argue, was worse than Mets last year. The Mets had one less loss than the Braves last year. You guys got the Mets pistol whipped the Phillies all regular season last year. And I firmly believe that if they match up in playoffs, the Mets would have done well against Philly. The Braves couldn't even handle them in Atlanta, no less. After taking the division a week prior, and that's what you come up with? We could do this dance all you want. Phillies choked in the World Series. They did, and yet you somehow got pistol whipped by them. So what's the point? What are you trying to prove? It proves nothing. It literally proves nothing. Let's see. Hold on, guys. I'm trying to catch up in the chat a little bit because it froze on me. Oh, also, and this goes, how about this? Question for Braves and Phillies fans before we get out of here in a couple minutes. I want to know, from a Braves fan perspective, how do you guys feel about Bryce Harper returning tomorrow? And for Mets fans, how do you feel about Bryce Harper returning? I want to know, because Bryce obviously wasn't scheduled to be back until sometime in July, and he's returning months in advance. I'd imagine he'll be at DH or get reps at first base too if he can handle it, in place of Rhys Hoskins, who's out for the year with injury. But I want to know how everyone is feeling about the Bryce Harper front, especially because he's coming back way ahead of schedule. Yes, the Mets got swept by the Braves after having a commanding lead in the East. That's correct. And both of them still choked in the playoffs. So I don't know what point trying to prove. It means nothing. But go on. Please do. Enlighten me. I want to know how you guys feel about Bryce, though, because I am someone that I'm not looking forward to Bryce Harper being back. Obviously, he's not only a Met killer, he's a Brave killer. He's been such a phenomenal player and nemesis to these respective teams that we've seen in the NL East since he's arrived in D.C. all those years ago now. And to have them back, I know the Phillies haven't had a great start to the year, but they're just in the thick of it. Same way with these two teams right now. It's going to be a huge race down the stretch, and to get Harper back this early, when you look at the overall power in that Phillies lineup now, led by Harper, you have Schwarber, of course, Castellanos. When he's on, Alec Boehm is a very solid hitter too. I mean, Stott is very solid too, a good contact hitter, could go gap to gap. When you have Trey Turner, who's arguably the best shortstop in baseball, they certainly have pieces, right? So bringing Harper in the fold is going to be very interesting to see how he looks out the gate, coming back from his Tommy John surgery, but more than anything, just how much this maybe changes the complexion of the NL East sooner than we initially thought, with the initial expectation that he was going to be back for a couple months from now. And the Marlins are doing well too, because Arias is the best contact hitter in baseball right now. He's been effing phenomenal, and he's been killing every team he's faced. Bryce might hurt himself rushing back so fast. I'll wait to judge that decision. I don't know if if he's cleared by docs, I don't know how much you're going to say it's rushing, right? I mean, as long as he's not playing the field much, if at all, like tops first base every now and then, I like his swing isn't the issue. It's throwing. So as long as he's not playing the outfield this year, I don't foresee there being any issues. But that's just my thought. I think Bryce is going to be fine, and I really think he's going to be kind of guns a-blazing out the gate. I really do. And this is someone who truly believes the Phillies can win the division this year. Just like how I could see the Braves win the division this year. And just like how I can see if healthy and if things get right and if the kids continue to produce and if maybe they do some trade acquisitions, the Mets can. The division doesn't mean nearly as much to me as it based on last year, knowing that you don't need to win the division to have a deep run. So my personal perspective on it's very different than what it was a year ago. However, doesn't change the fact that of who I think can win this division. And I do think the Phillies certainly have those pieces to make that argument, just like the Braves do. And to an extent, you could say the Mets do. Did the Mets ever explain why Buto didn't start game one? No, they didn't explain why. At least I didn't hear in postgame. I'd have to double check. They went with Denny Race was initially sent down a week or so ago, 2 weeks, to be stretched out more as a starter because he did well in a couple of relief innings for the Mets so far this year out west. But he was just absolute cheeks today. I mean, low velo on the fastball, getting barrel like crazy, handing pitches like no shit. He hung a slider right away to Murphy that led to Murph's first 3-run home run, and then the second one was a hanging slider again, this time from Jet Brigham. So, I mean, when you're going to hang pitches to elite hitters that the Braves certainly have, no one should be shocked that that is the outcome. Just frustrating because that guy should have never been pitching in the first place. But this Mets, I mean, the Mets have been absolutely getting killed with their pitching. Thankfully, they're finally starting to get reinforcements. Cookie Carrasco had a positive update too, so as of now, he's avoiding surgery. Not that that means too much because Cookie hadn't been good prior to his injury, but just food for thought. Not happy about Harper? Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you guys at all. But guys, I do have to let you know. Oh, wait. Hold on. Hold on, guys. Give me 1 second. Before we get out of here, I, of course, have to let you guys all know about our second partner on the channel today, and that is my good friends at Mantis Sleep. I've talked endlessly about Mantis Sleep for you guys, but for those that are new, that haven't checked out the link in the description, using my promo code WARDY for 10% off your purchase. Mantis Sleep, as you see here, this is your Sleep Mask Pro, the best sleep masks on the market right now, beyond affordable. I absolutely love these things. I came in possession of them over the past month, prior to even bringing them on as a channel partner, and I love their products so much as someone that never advocated heavily for sleep masks. I love it so much that I brought them on as a partner in doing so. And for those that aren't aware of Mantis Sleep and what they are when it comes to their sleep masks, they are top dog in the game right now. They are absolutely beautiful sleep masks, and I've been enjoying every single night for the past upwards of a month now. I've been sleeping with this bad boy, especially when there's light shining in my room early morning, and say you just want to get that, extra hour of sleep or something. If say I had a long night prior, especially if I'm doing content, you want this bad boy in, especially for when I'm out west. Not out west, but when I'm covering the Mets West Coast trip like I did a week or two ago, this comes in handy to make sure I get at minimum my comfortable 6 to 8 hours of sleep tonight. A night. That's what you want. The sound mask, which has Bluetooth in it, I've heard a lot of raves about. I've already had people, followers of mine, many of you guys watching this, I've already purchased them. I've raved about them thus far, which is great. The Silk Mask, the Sleep Mask, the Pro Mask, which is what I have. But the ones that I have yet to get in my possession that I really want is one, this is a Mantis Steam Mask that literally has steam come around your eyes to heat up that area and make it nice and comfortable. But the big one here is the Manta Cool Mask. It can have coolant around your eyes. And for someone that goes to bed hot, especially after doing late night post-game shows with big lights on me like you're seeing right now, that mask is going to come in key. And if you want a weighted mask, they have that too. So Mantis Sleep, please make sure to check them out if you're interested and looking to use a sleep mask for either the first time or to upgrade a current one you have, because I guarantee if you have one right now, it's not as good as this bad boy, I promise you. It slips on like a glove. It's beyond comfortable, and all you need to do is use my description, use my link in the description down below, using promo code WARDY for 10% off your purchase. Again, use promo code WARDY for 10% off your purchase. Travis, and shout out Man to Sleep, as always, for being a great partner on the channel. But guys, that is about going to wrap things up. I love you guys all to death. Thank you so much for chiming in. The Mets split their doubleheader today by a final score of 5-3 in Game 2. They drop Game 1 8-9, and they lose the series overall 2-1. And now the Mets look to hopefully get on a roll with some favorable games coming up against the Colorado Rockies this weekend. But before we get there, it's a quick away trip to Detroit against the Detroit Tigers with Joey Lucchesi, Max Scherzer, and Justin Verlander as your 3 starters out there. So guys, stay tuned. We'll be covering the Mets all week. We'll be covering these games. We'll be really in-depth covering that Justin Verlander start this Thursday for a watch party for however long he pitches at minimum, and doing a post-game show. Post-game shows after every single game this week up until the weekend. You guys know the drill. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, folks. Have a great one.